There we go. All right, so let me tell you what I've got here. I've got my small panel, and I've sanded it and got it to a smoothness. I want eggshell finish, so I've kind of made sure I've done that. Um, I did a drawing. So here's my drawing, and I transferred it onto the panel. Now I'm not going to go through that. I think you know how to do all that. So I just put some red pastel on the back or orange pastel, and I laid it over the top, and then I just traced it with a hard pencil, and I just transferred the drawing that way. So I've got this, my drawing the way I want it onto this surface. And then the next step will be to solidify the drawing with ink. We're going to do diluted ink wash. So got my brush, I've got some ink here, and what I'll do is I'll just go over my lines. Now this could be an optional step, but again, traditionally this is what you would do. And you could even use pen and ink rather than brush and ink. And you'll just, and of course, you could make any drawing corrections you want here while you're doing this. But this is not, the definitive drawing, because the technique will allow you to make corrections as you go. And then I would even go as far as start to do the practice cross hatching it in. Now I'm not going to do this whole thing because I've done one already, so I'm going to show you that. Boom. All right. So you develop it up, and you can push this as far as you want, or you can keep it pretty loose. It's completely up to your temperament. You know what you want to do. How tight do you want this to be? This also starts to create some tonality. Remember, the egg tempera itself, when we do it, is going to be rather translucent. So um, having this ink drawing underneath gives it a structure, gives it a kind of a body that might not be there otherwise. Keeps it pretty organized. So this is the point at which we would, if we wanted to add some gold leaf, we would do it. Now I'm not going to stop and do that now, but I promise you I will show you gold leaf at some point tonight. But at this stage, we want to we're going to start making some paint, because what I might do is do a little bit of a green wash on this, and then we can start doing the cross hatching. So let's get to the good stuff. So I've got my eggs, and I think I'm going to have to stand up for this. So I'm going to make my binder now. Let me put this aside for a second. And I need my container. So when you are ready to do this step, when you're going to make your binder, what you want to have is a paper towel. You want to have a container, because you're going to separate the white from the yolk. We only want the yolk. And you're going to want a small container to put the yolk in when you're ready. And you need something, a palette knife, or I'm going to use I always use my little tiny switchblade here to, this we're going to use to break the yolk sac so that we just get the inside of the yolk. So let's start with separating an egg. Now, has anybody ever separated an egg before in the kitchen? Okay, so you can get a mechanical egg separator, but I'm just going to show you the way you do it if you don't have that fancy stuff. And I'm just going to crack the egg. All right. And hopefully don't break the yolk yet. All right. So I'm just going to let as much of the white kind of run out of that as I can. And then what I'm going to do is pour this into the palm of my hand like this, and just let the white run out. And you're just going to go from hand to hand. You're going to do this and that. And every time you trade hands, some of the white will come out. There we go. And then once a lot of the white is out, now you want to, every time you switch hands, you want to take your paper towel and dry off the other hand. Okay. Now just do that again. Dry off the hand. And you can help it out a little bit. There you go. So now I got like the majority of the egg white off. And I'm just going to keep going from hand to hand. I need more paper towel. So you keep just going back and forth. And when it gets to a point where the you can actually start to see the yolk sac starting to stick to your hand a little bit, that's when you know you're pretty ready. You're ready to do the next step. So if it's still sliding pretty easily, dry your hand. And just keep doing it. All right, it's getting a little sticky. Okay, so I think I'm gonna try to go to the next step. So let me get this out of the way. Get my little container here. Now what I'm gonna do is, and you'll be surprised at how this is possible, but you're gonna pick this yolk sac up. You're just gonna pick it up, like pinch it with your other hand and let it dangle. And then you're gonna poke it and hold on to the yolk sac. And then all of the nice emulsion will go into your container. So I gotta make sure I do this with my correct hand here. So I've got my knife ready. There it is. Now be over the top of your thing, because if the yolk breaks, well, you don't want the yolk sac in your binder. So if it breaks, you can either start over again, or a lot of times you can save it. So just try. You're not going to break it. Try to pinch it. If you can't pinch it and pick it up, then you can run it back and forth a little bit. See, I can hold. Oof, not a good camera angle for it. Let me see if I can get it. But I'm holding it up. You can see, and I'm just going to stab it and keep a grip on the. There we go. All right, so you can see that, I hope. And I'll quickly just get rid of that. And now you might want to wash your hands. Be a good idea. I'm just going to put a little water on my hands because they're quite sticky. Okay, so that is the yolk. Now, to finish it up as a binder, what I'm going to do is add a teaspoon of water to it. So this should be distilled water. If you don't have distilled water, don't worry, just use tap water, but ideally you would use distilled. So just add about a teaspoon. I'm going to add a little less because that yolk was pretty small. And I'm also going to add just a drop or two of denatured alcohol. If you don't have it, don't worry. Just a couple of drops. And then we're going to mix that up together. I'll give it a stir. And this is our binder. All right. Now, if we go over to my palette, now what I would suggest for a palette here, if you can use any palette you want, but you're going to find using a glass palette or a disposable palette just gives you fewer headaches. So I've got a disposable palette here. And you can see that I've already begun. I've just added, put out some powder. And remember that you are using a pigment. So this is where you would definitely want to have some kind of mask. You want a dust mask or respirator on because you're working with loose pigments. As far as what kind of pigments you can use in egg tempera, you can use pretty much any of them. You'll find that some pigments, trying to make them into a paste is really difficult. Ultramarine blue, for instance, gets a little funny when you add water to it. But if you add a little drop of denatured alcohol to that, it will go easier. So remember, denatured alcohol is a solvent, but it's also a wetting agent, which means it helps certain powders become paste that normally don't like to become paste. So you don't want to add too much. You want it to be pasty. So it's thicker than last week. Last week we added water, but we wanted it to be the consistency of ink. Here we want it to be more like what? Like paste, like yogurt, like thick Greek yogurt. And so I've got one I didn't do yet. So I've got all my colors out here. But like I said, you could use any color, but since you are working with raw pigment, I would avoid cadmiums. I would avoid anything metal-based or toxic for obvious reasons. So this palette here you'll find is surprisingly flexible. And this is just our black, our Indian red or Venetian red, yellow ochre, raw sienna, titanium white, and ultramarine blue. And with those colors, you can pretty much do almost anything, unless you need a really super intense red for some reason. Okay. So let's just set that there. And I don't need this egg right now, so I'm going to put him away. And let's bring back our star. Okay, so when we want to make some paint, we're going to do this. You'll find you end up doing this the way you want to do it, but you could just, what you want to do is you want to make paint. Remember, this is not paint yet. This is just dispersion. It's not paint till it's in a binder. So to make it, you want to add approximately 1-to-1, one part yolk to 1 part of the pigment paste. So I'm going to mix up a kind of a green wash. I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow ochre and a little bit of my ultramarine blue. And I'm gonna actually mix this together before I add the yolk. And again, once you've added the yolk, it has the clock is ticking because it will dry on your palette. It dries. It's not as fast. It doesn't dry as fast as gouache. Okay, and I would say it dries maybe a little faster than acrylic would. So I've made my green. Now I'm going to add binder to it. So you do this by eye. There's no, I mean, you could sit there with some kind of, what do you call those things? Like a water dropper. Now, how do you know you're doing a good ratio of yolk to pigment? Well, when you're painting, your paint strokes, your paint film should end up looking like an eggshell finish. It should have a slight sheen to it. If it isn't, if it's really matte, then you're not putting enough yolk in. Okay, that's really important. So just kind of every once in a while, just look at the surface of your painting, like in the light, like bend it so that the light glare is on it. And if it's super flat, then you need to be adding more yolk to your to what you're doing. So at this point, I can add water. It's basically a water-based, water-soluble paint. So I'm going to do a wash here and just build up. And again, we don't want really heavy brush strokes, so we want it to be really quite thin, because you can always layer it. So you can do it thinly and then add more afterwards. And all I'm doing here is just giving it a little bit of, just kind of knocking down that light color. But I'll leave the color of the white panel where I want maybe a highlight or something like that. Now, what is really important when you're doing this is to know which areas of your palette have pigment that have yolk in it, that has binder in it, because you'll get mixed up, and you don't want to be painting with this because there's no binder in it. So you have like a little organization for your palette. This area is just for pigment with no yolk in it. This area, if it's over in this area, then it has yolk in it. Okay, your life will be a lot easier if you do it that way. I'm all about making your life easier. Now you can see I'm not being really, I'm not doing cross hatching or anything like that. I'm just doing a general wash. And I don't have terre verte, so I made this my own green here. And you'll be able to work with this. You'll be able to work with this pigment and binder pretty much the whole session. Like, it's not going to dry out on you here. But you do want to be careful that you don't keep adding water to it and like you're trying to redissolve the yolk if it is drying. You'll get a feel for it. You'll just know that, oh, it's getting super tacky. That means the yolk is setting up. I probably ought to scrap that bit. And that's why we do small batches, because you work with it for a while and then you realize, okay, that paint is ready to move on. Okay, so let's say I did a lot more of that. And now what I'm going to do is start thinking about doing the cross hatching. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and make, because I'm just going to do this really quickly in the demo, I'm just going to make a series of, just going to make my paint. And you'll see that because the egg yolk does impart a kind of warmth to the colors, it does change them slightly, but it will dry more clearly than you see it right now. So if you look at this white right now, it looks really kind of like a warm white, but it won't dry that way. All right, so the way I'm doing it right now, I wouldn't do it this way, but I'm just doing it because I want to move quickly. So I would have, again, separate your pastes from your paint area more than I'm doing here. And again, remember, it's about 1-to-1 egg yolk to pigment paste. Okay. then have your water near you. And what's great about this, again, it's about building up, so we can start really, really translucently. And if we, sort of patiently working out the colors, and then we could alter them as we go along. So you load up your brush. Now, if you paint right now with it, what you're going to get are these little blobs of paint. So when you're working, have some scrap paper or a little bit of paper towel over to the side. And just before you do a stroke, just tap it on the paper a little bit like that. And then you can do the stroke. Now I want to show you how I do this. I do it like a pendulum. So I put my pinky, I rest my pinky on the panel, and I hold the brush kind of like this between my thumb and forefinger, and then just kind of do that, like bam, bam, bam. And you could do quick strokes. You're trying to get them all parallel or roughly parallel to one another. It's hard to remember to keep doing the thing where you take the blob off the end of the brush, but it's kind of, it will be a little bit unprofessional looking if you get all these blobby blobs in there. So if you've ever cross-hatched in a drawing, you know that there are lots of ways to do it. It's sort of, what I tend to do is I do a line that goes either vertical or horizontally, and then I do something that is at an oblique to that. I don't do like literal cross-hatching all the time, but you will see that when you look at a lot of egg tempera paintings, if you, especially more contemporary ones, you will see a literal cross-hatching. You will see this. And I wouldn't do it that way. I would actually turn the panel and I would go, because this is a much more natural motion, just to kind of move the brush this way. And let's see, I'm getting a lot of, depends on your brush. If you have a really good brush, you'll get a lot of brush strokes out of it. But once the brush paint starts to, crack a little bit, go load up the brush again. But I can get probably about 10, maybe even a dozen paint strokes out of each. So again, patience is a good thing to have. And I can go, like, I can paint over the lines here. I'm not too worried about it because this, though it's translucent, I can come back and cover up that paint pretty easily. And just do it, just trying to show a little bit of a gradation here. So if I do, so because this is translucent, I can kind of feather this out and I can make it a little more dense down here. So I can gradate from a lighter blue to a darker blue. And again, going in different directions kind of fills in the gaps. Like that. And onward and onward and onward. Let me see, I'll just do a little bit more and then I'll do that cooking show thing where I swap it out. Now you're not literally blending any of the paint. You're not doing wet and wet like you do with oil paint. So all these kind of gradations have to be done like you would with charcoal or with colored pencil or with graphite. You just, you got to just go back and forth and create your own gradation. So as you can see, this small panel would take me quite a while. And you can get really finicky and all that stuff. Let's try a different color and then, so let me take my, now if I were doing this for real, I would tend to do the like things in the back, the shapes in the back first, and then do things in the foreground afterwards. And that will allow me to do little drawing corrections. Like I can just fix up that little area there. It's very easy to do that. So again, the surface of this done traditionally, and I do want to do this, ultimately I would like everybody to try this traditional technique, but you can certainly experiment a little bit today. But I'd like you at least to experiment somewhat with this cross-hatching technique. And then if you want to also practice using it in a different way, like using washes of it. That's why we have, I think we have 4 panels. So we need some of them for the cold wax technique. And we've got a small one and a big one for this. If you have other panels, you can use them to practice as you wish. But I want to show you like the next step, like if I just kept doing that for hours and hours and hours. This is last year's, and that was all in one session. So this was, I didn't spend 10 hours on it. I spent probably 3 hours on it, you know, and just kind of building up. And you see how it ends up looking a little bit like a colored pencil drawing. And then, and this is the date there is in gold leaf. So I'll, we'll talk about doing that. I'm not going to do it now because it takes about half an hour for the glue to set up and all that. So it's something I can show you after you've worked on this a little bit, and then I can interrupt and we can see if people have questions or problems. And then I can also show you the gold leaf technique. Okay. So what questions do you have about this?
Is there a part like the egg doesn't have to be like a room temperature or something? Is there like a particular temperature?
No, I mean, if it's coming right out of the refrigerator, it's fine. Some people find that if it's too warm, it breaks too easily. So mine was at room temperature, so it was fine. But I'm this is the point where I'm really sad that we're not together, because there's nothing I like better than the egg poking session of this of this technique, because everybody does it so well. It's amazing. Like probably something nobody's ever had to do before, right? But you're going to do it now. here. That's my progress. Really rough. Um, and I'd need to work on it to kind of graduate the transitions from light to shadow and you can rework these. I could totally change the composition on this because you can overpaint with this. It's rather translucent, but it's pretty forgiving. It's somewhere between indirect oil painting and working with gouache. Gouache is you can just push things around all day long. Um,
Sam, where'd you purchase your gold leaf from?
the gold leaf, you can get imitation gold leaf. That's what I'm using. Um,
Okay.
so that I got at they sell it at the art stores. I'm not sure if it was Plaza or Blick. I have a feeling Blick would have it. Uh,
Oh, there's a blick right around the corner from my. Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I would probably check there first. Um, yeah. So I'll show you that this is I'm not going to show you the ultra traditional way to go to gold leaf, but I will describe it. So what I'm going to be using is, and this was in the material list, is this, well, they sell these at most art stores. So the gold leaf, and again, this is imitation gold leaf, um, sold in a packet like this. And the sheets are individually, they're about, what does it say, about 25 sheets. And it's very thin. It's not as thin as real gold leaf, but it's mounted on this paper just barely, but enough to kind of hold it so you can work with it. Gold leaf is really hard to work with, a real gold leaf, because it's very lightweight, and even the slightest breeze or just getting up and down from your chair could blow it all over the place. This is helpful to have it mounted on this paper, but real gold leaf requires some special handling. Usually you have a gilder's brush, which allows you to manipulate the gold. It kind of, the brush will grab the gold leaf because of with a kind of a static connection. And cutting it is really hard. When you're doing real gold leaf, you would have this special kind of velvety pillow and a special gilder's knife that you would use to cut shapes of gold leaf out. And but what's really nice, the good thing about this is you can cut this with scissors, this imitation gold leaf. It's not as bright, it's not the same color. Um, so obviously you're giving up tons to do it in this cheaper and more convenient way. Now, the gold leaf is decorative. Um, it often reads really flat, and that's sort of what it's for. Um, you're not going to be able to like generate dimension out of it. You can, it's not recommended, but you can actually paint over gold leaf. So sometimes people will uh, gild a whole area and then paint around it and sort of define the shape of the gold leaf by painting into it. But I find that the paint often fails when it's painted over the gold leaf. So what we normally do when you're at that stage, and again, normally we would do this after the inking and the transfer of the drawing and the inking prior to doing any color. And um, what you would normally do is you're going to incise a line that will, you want to incise the shape that you're going to be um, of gold leaf that you want. And so if I were uh, taking my panel here, and I've already set up a couple of these, but if, let's say I wanted a circle, then I would draw the circle, or I would inscribe the circle. And I'm using a an etching tool here, but you could use like the sharp end of a compass, but it has to really dig in. And what you're doing is just making a channel, because you're going to be putting some adhesive down, and the gold will stick to wherever the adhesive is. And the channel, that little groove, is going to act like a like a moat, and it's gonna where the glue will kind of stop when it gets to that. So it's not absolutely required, and I have done it without it, but it gives you a should give you a crisper edge. Now, if we're doing this traditionally, what I would be using is clay bowl. And clay bowl is sort of clay and rabbit skin glue or some hide adhesive uh, that is it's red and red clay. And what that does, it does a couple of things. It You paint that clay bowl onto the area you want the gold leaf, and it creates an absorbent, soft area. But because it has the rabbit skin glue in it, it's also an adhesive. And when you wet it, because remember, rabbit skin glue is reversible. When you wet it, it's like licking a stamp. It becomes adhesive again. So it'll dry, and then you can re-wet it, and it becomes sticky, and then you put the gold on top. And the reason it's red is because the gold will be rather transparent or somewhat transparent as you burnish it. And the red color makes the gold really kind of deep, like a deep gold color. So that it's a really tricky kind of thing, and you can probably watch a video of it, and I'll try to find one to post on the on Canvas. But we're doing sort of the quick modern version of this, and instead of clay bowl, BOLE, by the way, we're going to be using this adhesive size. So remember, that's almost like redundant. Adhesive size. A size is an adhesive, but anyway. And they sell this right near the gilding area. And so what I do is you shake it up really well, and you
Oh,
get
what was
a,
the name again? Sam, I'm sorry.
yep, sure. It's called Adhesive Size. Metal leaf, the brand Speedball, metal leaf adhesive size. I did put a picture of it on our illustrated um, material list, so you should be able to see it. But
Okay, cool.
there, okay. And by the way, this I should have told you this, so I'm sorry, but I am recording these demos so that I can post them on Canvas. So you'll have this.
Okay.
Um, so I don't know if you can see this, but I've already done a couple of shapes. Can you just barely see it? I put a little bit of pigment in my brush just so you could see the glue. And you can see I've written 2020. And I did this 30 minutes ago. The instructions on the bottle say put it on and wait 30 minutes. So it's been almost exactly 30 minutes. But here's where I made my groove down here. And you just brush it on. It couldn't be simpler. Um, and you don't want puddles, so you want a pretty thin layer. Like that. And because I made that groove, there's no overpaint. Like I don't get into the place I don't want. I can paint right up to that. So no puddles, so get rid of any puddles. And then just wait. I think 15 minutes is fine, but it says 30. And what it's doing is it just kind of gets tacky. It's a little bit like spirit gum. It's really kind of, if you've ever done that, like if you do prosthetic makeup or something like that, it's a little bit like that. Okay, so I'm going to take my gold leaf, and these are the ones I've already done. So I'm just gonna, you can just lay it over on the paper like this. Make sure I get that on there. I think what I'm going to do. All right. I'm going to lay it on. And then it was sticking to my fingers. My fingers were a little sticky. So I got gold thumb. I'm just going to press it down a little bit with a cotton. And then See if I landed on the right spots there. You take the paper off. Okay, so now I'm gonna, with the paper off, I'm just gonna push it down a little bit. And you'll start to see, and this is where the groove comes in handy again, because you will actually see the groove. This metal leaf is so thin that you'll actually see every imperfection. Now, if your panel is really rough, you don't want to do this because you're going to pick up any bubbles, any marks, any grooves. So if you're planning to do any gold leaf, you want to really sand your panel down to a, like I said, like an eggshell finish. All right, and I'm gonna put, I think there's a little more glue here. So I'm just gonna add that. No, I think that glue's going. All right, so now I'm gonna let that sit for a little while. And then I'm gonna take a soft brush, just a watercolor brush, and just kind of gently rub that surface. And it'll tear very easily. And it should just stay where the glue is. If you do this too fast, like if I put it where I had just put the glue, you'll find that it's not as successful. It doesn't hold as well. And just be patient and be gentle with it.
Are you able to reuse the excess gold leaf that you take off of it?
Yeah. Yeah, I would trim it down to the smallest shape you can, but then if there's a little bit, you can. And if your area is bigger than the sheets, you can overlap them. You wouldn't even notice, like when you're done. Like you won't notice that
Okay.
they're so thin, you won't notice that you've overlapped two sheets. All right, so now I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive. So on this one down here, you can see that I had an oval or an ellipse, but I ran the gold stopped before the glue did. So if I had caught that, I could have just put another piece over the top while the glue was still there. Just go in a couple of different directions. I'm just going to go in little swirls. And here I just freehanded 20/20, just with the brush. So I didn't carve any grooves. Let's see if it comes out. I'm going to have to switch to a tougher brush. My brush is too soft. Let me find a little bit of a stronger brush. There we go. How's that look on camera? Not bad. It looks really yellow, doesn't it? It doesn't look that yellow in real life. It must be picking up some.
But that 20/20 looks really good.
Yeah, that's just freehand. So yeah, I have to keep working to get the little things to pop out here in the center. I don't know how aggressive I want to be. I don't want to ruin it. There it goes. You just got to catch it. There it is. And see, like it's where the glue is, it's not budging a bit. So it's not super expensive. I think that this glue is actually surprisingly pricey. I think it's $8 or something for this little jar, but you'll have it forever. If you keep the cap on it, I mean, I've had this thing for about 5 years and it doesn't look like I've used any of it. But let's see how that looks on camera. Yeah, not bad. So this is definitely something that's easy to do. You can, if you want that little extra dash of egg tempera-ness to your project, you could think about trying that out. I wish we were in the class. I would obviously, I normally just give people a sheet if they want to try it out, and I have the glue. But if you want to try it yourself, it's probably going to set you back about $20. So if you want to do your date in gold leaf on your panel and it's worth $20 to you, there you go. Hey, didn't MICA give you some money? I really hope they gave you some money. Did they give you guys a check?
Give us like a
Yes, they did.
$200, yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, so I hope that took a bit of the bite out of some of the materials you're getting for my class. Like I said, normally I try to supply just about everything I can. But so does anybody think they're going to try this?
Maybe on future projects, I'll definitely try this for sure.
Well, it really has to be done on you want it. Well, you could try it on lots of different things. It should work even on a canvas, but I mean, of course, it's appropriate for egg tempera because that's where you typically see it. Now, I will say one more thing about the gold leaf and the panels. You can also what you might see a lot of in these egg tempera paintings is you'll see embossing in the gold leaf. So you can either after the gold leaf, you can take a tool and you could, if it has like a little shape at the end, like a nail punch or something, and you can just tap it. And because the panel, the glue gesso has a little bit of a give to it, you can actually make indentations into the gold leaf and create decorative patterns onto it. You can also do that before putting the gold leaf on, and the gold leaf will pick up any pattern that you've driven into the panel. So those are all things and that you'll see pretty commonly with gold leaf and egg tempera painting. Especially things around borders, like decorative borders around a painting. You'll see that there'll be embossing and decorative marks in it. So I just want to I'm looking over at the Padlet and I see, Amanda has something. Yes, of course, far from finished. I don't expect you to be. So, but it looks pretty good so far. Boy, you put a lot of, is that all ink in the background, Amanda?
No, it's tempera.
Okay, so you just went for the massive block in back there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but I see you got is this a Botticelli copy?
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
Walmart version of it.
Well, I mean, Botticelli's a good one to rip off, I'll tell you that. So, yeah, so I thought what I do is I'm just gonna hang out here for about an hour. I'm not gonna make you stay on Zoom all night long, but like I said, like this is something you can pick up and put down. You can like here's my my yoke, and I've hardly used any of it. So I have the little container. I can put a cap on it. I could probably easily work with it all night long, no problem at all. But if you want to, you want to stop or you want to pick it up again tomorrow or over the weekend, all you got to do is make the recipe again. And remember, all that stuff is on Canvas, and also the demo itself is going to be on Canvas. So you'll be able to watch that again if you want.